Hey there again, folks. It's Troy.
And Matthew.
And we are here. We had our last giveaway that we just did. And we had a lot of people that actually responded with some questions and answers over our past couple of videos. And I mean, I got a stack full of questions. So I figure we'll try to answer some of them today. What, does it look daunting to you?
No, it just looks like this is going to take a couple videos.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's going to take a couple videos. It may be a little longer than normal. We'll find out. But we also have a giveaway winner. The winner has been notified here on YouTube, and the winner will have 3 days in order to respond to us. If not, we'll pick a second winner. So I have not announced. We're not announcing that name now, but we will once that winner is confirmed back to us. Okay? Sound good to you?
Yes.
And we were giving away a t-shirt. We got a bunch more t-shirts here left, and I'm sure we're going to give away a lot more stuff. Some pens, some inks. Believe it or not, you know, I ordered some pens before for giveaway I showed you.
Yes.
Guess what I did just yesterday?
What?
I ordered even more pens just to give away. Dang. Yeah, a couple more. So, question and answer. Let's go ahead and answer a few. And Kimberly asks, what is your favorite pen and ink combo, each of you? What's your favorite pen and ink combination?
Okay, mine's either probably Waterman or Mont Blanc.
Okay, but how about what's in your collection? What's your favorite? Do you have a particular pen that you go, I like this particular pen with this particular ink?
Okay,
Okay, go ahead, pick it. Pick it, pull it.
I'm trying to get it.
Okay.
This pen, I like it with the ink. I haven't, but I don't remember what one it is.
Well, this particular pen here, I don't know if I still have it logged for you because once we pull them out, I no longer keep that ink on your spreadsheet. So, you know, I don't have what ink was in it, but either way, that particular pen does need to be be cleaned out. So, buddy, I'm looking at your spreadsheet, and I don't see it here that it has any ink listed for it.
I think it might have been Waterman something.
Nah, I don't know. Nah, for that one, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's a Jim Hines. Okay, hold on. That's a Jim Hines beacon, by the way. Jim Hines at HinesPens.com. And Jim is a custom maker out of Texas. We had the chance to meet up with Jim at the DC Pen Show. I actually own one very similar to that, a little longer, but with a clip. So, for me, my favorite combination so far, and gotta be honest,
Dang.
it's going to be this pen right here, which is the Waterman Edson and the Boucheron edition together with Waterman. And this is a Waterman ink that I really like, and I've done a video on it, Serenity Blue. So that is probably my favorite pen and ink combination.
I've tried this ink too. I like it.
Okay. Next question. We have a question from Kevin. Have you reached the point in your fountain pen journey where the pen is less the focus than paper, ink, or something else? So that's probably more aimed at me. No, I have not. Quite honestly, I've arrived at the point in my journey where the ink is less of a focus. I've got a lot of inks, and I still order inks, and I still try inks and ink samples, but I gotta be honest with you. I'm at the point, which is why I'm going to be giving away some inks. There are inks that I've found that I like them, and I'm going to keep using them. There are people out there who only have 1 or 2 inks, and because they're very, very happy with them, and they'll just put them in different pens. I'm not quite to that point yet, but I'm getting more along that line where I've got a handful of inks that I really, really like, and I want to continue to use, and others I'm getting away from. And not that I dislike them, it's just that I've developed favorites. So the pens are what's exciting to me, to open up and try a brand new pen. And I like the surprise when I get a pen, I try it, and I go, ooh, that's good. Now, I got to be honest with you. As I get further into it and I buy better pens, higher end pens, pens that perform better, my tastes are gravitating up and up. That doesn't mean, though, that I don't mind lower class or lower cost pens. For instance, there's a pen here that just arrived in today's mail that I'm going to be doing a video on here. And it's an inexpensive Monteverde, so I don't mind the lower end pens as well, especially if I try them out and I go, ooh, that's a good pen. So, next question. Troy, what got you interested in fountain pens? And that comes from actually our video, or our t-shirt winner. I'm not going to mention his name. All right, here's what got me interested in fountain pens. I was working with a guy who was a close friend of mine who liked to use them. And we were at work, and he would constantly write with a fountain pen. He had very nice handwriting. Actually, he printed everything. We didn't have the computer system at work to be able to print a lot of stuff and do graphics, so he used to hand letter a lot of things. And so he let me try and use his fountain pen. I said, no, that's not bad. So I went out and I bought myself one. And then I said, okay, well, then I eventually bought a second one, which is the same model that he had. And I'll probably talk about more about that.
And what got me interested is that he was using them.
Right.
And then I tried some of his. I liked his. And then my very first fountain pen was Jinhao 599. Yep.
I remember it well.
Me too. It was red.
It was red, and you put green ink in it a lot, and you used it on your schoolwork.
Yeah, I did not like the green ink. It was cactus something.
It was cactus green eel. Noodler's cactus green eel. You did like that ink because you asked me to refill it with that constantly.
Oh yeah, I did like it, but I stopped.
How about this? Next question. I would like to start collecting a vintage pen or two. What's a good vintage pen to start with? What?
Vintage Parker 51.
That is actually a pretty good pen for you if you're looking for a vintage. Here is my recommendation, Esterbrook. Esterbrook's are inexpensive. You can swap out nibs if you don't like the nib that you've got because they're easily replaced, and the nibs are plentiful and they're inexpensive. The other thing is, if you break it, you're not breaking an incredibly expensive pen, and if you want to learn about vintage pens, how to take them apart, how to put them back together, how to fix them, how to change an ink sac, I cut my teeth pretty much on Esterbrook's. That and an old Imperial lever filler. But Esterbrook would be a great one. I'd tell you another one that I tend to like, Wall Eversharp Skyline. I really enjoy those. So those would be the first ones I would recommend for you to get, play with, touch, and enjoy. So, thinking of a topic, how about sheening inks?
What is Dave?
It's an ink where when you lay it out, you actually see various colors kind of shine through, maybe some reds and blues as you're writing, and they almost shine a little bit. Gotta be honest, sheening inks, to me, I'm not into what I call gimmick inks. Some people are really into shimmering inks. Not me. Some people are into the sheen, and sometimes they look really cool when you get nice and sheen. I use pens at work a lot, and I just want it to write well, behave well, and I don't get, oh, look at the sheen on that. Yeah, that's not me. I'm just more interested in the pens, less so on the ink. So, what is Matthew's Grail pen, or favorite pen from your collection? So, how about you? We talked about this when you and I were talking. If there's one pen out there that you've seen and you go, it's my goal to eventually have that pen right there, what would it be? That one? Well, I figure you're going to outlive me, only because I'm a lot older than you are, and you're my son, and you may end up with it eventually, and if you want to get one of your own maybe someday.
Are they expensive?
They are expensive. They are. That's probably one of the most. That's probably the most expensive pen that I've purchased so far.
I better get a lot of birthday money.
A lot of birthday money. So that's the favorite pen of mine from your collection, because I know a while back you had said you wanted a Mont Blanc.
It's that one, a Mont Blanc. And this one I reached my goal because Daddy had one. I said, ooh, that's a pretty pen, and I like that
Okay,
one.
so a Mont Blanc 146 is this one. And so that's what you originally were talking about. You wanted a Mont Blanc.
Yes, it was this one or your newest one that you got, the DC one.
Well, this is newer to me than that one, the 149. But all right.
Next question.
Do you have a set of pens for rotation? And if so, how many are in that set? From Craig Bond. Craig Bond. I do have a set of pens in rotation, and here's how I do it. I keep a spreadsheet of all my pens. I keep a spreadsheet for his pens.
And Mama's.
I keep a spreadsheet for my wife's pens, and I keep a spreadsheet for my mother-in-law's pens, because we all have fountain pens, and I keep trying to track ink. David over at Figboot on pens developed a spreadsheet that I started out with, and for those of you who are going to be bigger into your collections, you may outgrow his spreadsheet a little bit. And I outgrew it, so what I did was I modified it quite heavily for my own use, and I do keep a spreadsheet. And one of the things that I do is I filter that spreadsheet down showing what's inked. So I always, the pen, what ink is in it, and that's really the majority of the information that I need. And there's a few other columns of info in there too. But for me, it is the pen and the ink, filter it down, I can see what's inked. So what I do is I pick out of that list. And unfortunately, I haven't been disciplined enough to keep fewer pens inked. Sometimes I've had as many as 50, 52 pens inked at any given time. And right now it's in the 20s. And when I get new pens in, I ink them up and I try them out. Of course, they're on the spreadsheet and it's showing that they're inked. And I try to pick and rotate through them. And there are some pens, of course, that I may really, really like and I use for several days in a row, because it's my prerogative, especially if it's a newer pen or one that I hadn't used in a while and I pull out and I wanted to ink up. When I got a Grail pen last week, I inked it up and I used it for like 3 or 4 days just to be able to enjoy it and love it. So
what pen was it?
That was my Waterman 58 Vintage in Red Ripple.
Oh, that's your new pen that I saw.
Yeah. So how many are in that set? It varies depending upon how many are inked up at the time. So I know it's not a real specific answer. I don't have a set number. Let's see. You two are great together. So do tell, how often do you rotate pen use? There you go. I just kind of answered that question. Have you ever forgotten that you've got a particular pen? Yes. And I was actually looking at a pen, and there was a comment where somebody had a Waterman Executive, for instance, and they were trying to sell a Waterman Executive, and I said, that sounds familiar. And I looked at my spreadsheet. Psst, that's why it's familiar, because there it is right there, and it's right now it's not inked up. It's been flushed out and cleaned and put away. So I don't have that Waterman Executive right now inked up, but that's why and it's been a while since I've used it. So yeah, keeping track of everything, it's either a pain or something that's really enjoyable. Like I said, I keep a spreadsheet, and I'll put a link. I'll tell you what, to David at Figboot on pens, I'll put a link to his video that he did on where he offers a spreadsheet for people to be able to download and use. And like I said, I know just enough to be dangerous with Excel. I use Excel a lot, but I'm no expert on it. And I will, I use that to keep track of everybody's. Okay. What's your opinion of the educational system teaching Matthew penmanship? They teach penmanship nowadays? They don't.
Nope. They don't even teach cursive.
That's a problem, okay? The educational system nowadays, they're trying to go all digital. And I understand, you want to have digital skills. It's a computer world. It's not like it was when I was in school. However, basics have not changed. You've got a group of kids coming up now who can never read original documents, so like the U.S. Constitution or some old writings from their grandparents, even letters. They won't be able to do any of that. They can't sign their name on a legal contract because they don't know cursive. They have to print everything. It used to be that you had to sign your name and print your name. Well, kids in his group, his age range, don't know how to do cursive, so there's going to be print and print.
Only cursive letter I know how to do is Y.
So it's sad to me. It's pathetic, in my opinion, that they are not taught old analog ways, and they are not taught how to use a pen. They're not taught how to write cursive, and they just don't do penmanship whatsoever. They should. They absolutely should. It should be a life skill. And I keep offering to sit with you and work with you, and you never respond to that. You bum. Can you do a video on making nibs wetter and drier? We can, and I will definitely put that as a list of video topics. I've got several actually that people have written, hey, can you do this? Can you try that? Can you do a video on this? And I've got a list of video topics I really need to do sometime, and some of them are actually going to be some basics. And I need to do a few primers for people who know me or have met me and don't know anything about pens yet, and I really need to do some primer videos. So I'm going to set this in a separate pile as a topic to do. Troy, I know that you have said that you do not enjoy extra fine nibs, but would you consider doing a video of ultra fine or needlepoint nibs? Yeah, which is almost exactly what it says. Gotta be honest, I've got a couple very fine or extremely fine nibs. Not a fan of them. I tend not to buy too many of them, quite honestly. The last Esterbrook dollar pen that I bought has an extremely fine nib on it. And not a fan. It still writes okay for what it is, but it's still, I don't know. So would I do a video on it? I don't know. I'm going to set this aside as again, with the possible topics, but not a fan of them, so I don't really talk about much other than don't know it. Alright, here's one. From somebody who had commented on another video that I'd done on vintage pens and collecting and stuff. I would love to have a good idea of the minimum tools I'd need for the most likely problems I'll likely encounter, and that's going to be for vintage repairs and restoration. Sure. Here's what I will do, is I will actually record a segment and I'll stick it in right here. Here's where I would start. I'm going to throw out something that you're not going to hear from a lot of other people who talk about them. But never underestimate the effectiveness of applying heat when trying to tear apart a pen. This is a heat gun. It is like $12 to $15 online, something like that on eBay. And all it is just basically it's like a blow dryer that all it does is throw out heat. And you flip it on, it's only got one speed, and it puts out some very hot heat where it's going to be extremely hot here and will melt stuff. But you want to be able to apply when you hold out your pen at a decent distance. But because some of the pens are held together with a glue or a sealant, and quite honestly you're dealing with pens that will expand and contract with heat, this will make your life so much easier and keep you from breaking pens. Ask me how I know. I've done it because I've done stuff without using heat. All right, so don't underestimate the need for one of these. I highly recommend it. Ron Zorn taught me this, and I actually learned his advice the hard way. So let's go with this. This is a set of digital calipers. These are fairly inexpensive. You can actually get one with a dial. I've got 3 or 4 of these in the house. One was I bought years ago for bullet reloading. This one I bought for several dollars. I got another one that's cheaper than this, and I got a really nice one that was given to me for Christmas. But this is a fairly inexpensive one. It costs under $10. And what you want to do is to be able to measure the width. Let's say the width of the nipple upon which an ink sac would sit, and rather than buying a sac gauge like I've seen and I thought about buying, well, once you learn that a number 12 gauge is 12/64 of an inch, a number 16 gauge or a number 16 sac is 16/64 of an inch, and when you find out that this reads in 64ths of an inch, then you'll know exactly what size sac you're going to need. So I know that with a lot of Waterman pens, I need a number 16 replacement sac, which are these right here. And these are about $2 American a piece, depending upon from where you buy them. So you'll need these. And you'll need an assortment. So I've got 14, 16s, 20s, 18s, somewhere in there, and I've got pens that take various size sacks. And I have gone where I've had 14 sacks and I really needed like a 16 or maybe an 18, and I really had to stretch that sack. Nah, what a pain that is. Don't do that. I learned the hard way. A polishing cloth. Just a simple jeweler's polishing cloth. I mean, these are really cheap. And it'll help shine up a little bit and take oxidation off from clips and metal and that kind of stuff. So fairly inexpensive. You're going to want like a jeweler's loop. All right, this is the one that this particular loop, the Belomo triplet, was one that was recommended by Richard Bender when I took his nib class a couple years ago. So I went ahead and I bought that one. I've got a couple others as well, but you're going to want a good magnifying glass that you can use, and you want one that's going to be not lit. You can have a lighted one, but you'll want one that's not lit. That gives you this is a 10x loop. So you're going to want a bulb syringe or two. I've got one that's cut off here. I've got one that tapers down further that you're going to want to flush with water or pen flush. Okay. You're going to want, if you're going to be working with ink sacks at all, you're going to want some talc. This is fairly inexpensive. It was $1.50. I haven't gone through the whole thing yet. I mean, I've had this a couple of years now, but I've got a full bag full of talc too that I bought off from somebody online who was selling a bunch of ink sacks, and I was looking for. I just happened to stumble across somebody who had purchased some ink sacks, and they were selling a bag of talc, some sacks, and some pliers for the price of just a couple of sacks. So I went ahead and snatched those up. Speaking of which, section pliers. This is where you would grip onto the section, and once you've got it heated, and try to wiggle that sucker out. Not everybody uses these. Some of the professionals actually use regular old pliers, and they've ground off the spiky grips on the inside and put like radiator hose over them, and those tend to work very well for them. I'm not that adept, nor do I have the grinder with which to do that. So I picked up a pair of section pliers for like $12, and like I said earlier, just a minute ago, that when I got the talc, a section plier set came with that as well. So I now have two of these. These come in helpful, and a rubber grip, whether it's something that you would use to open up a lid on a jar, or a little tiny rubber grip that, let's say, they sell at Goulet Pens. They call it the Goulet grip. And all it is just a little piece of rubber. So, something like that would be invaluable. You'll want some micro mesh. Various grits. I mean, I've got almost every grit that they've got, but quite honestly, what was recommended to me is some 2000 grit automobile sanding paper. These sticks here for nib smoothing and nib to work on nibs a little bit. Basically, I don't use this pink side at all. It's a little rough. That fine grit sandpaper works better. And I'll use this side, and I'll use the back here. So I'll use those in my nib smoothing. The Mylar, not so much. And believe it or not, a nail file. No, I do not use this for nibs. No, not at all. I do use it though when I go to clean off all the residue that's on the nipple on which an ink sac attaches. I will take and file that down a little bit once I've got most of it off. So everybody does it a little bit differently. On that nipple where you've got the crusted glue and stuff, I actually use these, which is an old set of nail clippers, where I'll get it on and I'll just doink, doink, and go around that nipple, and I'll clean that off. This works well for me. It may not work well for everybody else, but that's what works for me. Something else, some polish. You'll want some polish in a cleaning cloth. Occasionally you'll want some tweezers. I've got a whole set of tweezers. You're going to want, you may want a dental pick set. That may help clean stuff out, clean out some crud. You'll want some sack cement because these ink sacks you're going to have to attach and permanently seat them. And then you've got some just a piece of gold foil to floss through your tines. Oh, in addition to all that, I'll throw out a little bonus. It's really, really good to get a fairly inexpensive ultrasonic cleaner. For less than $30, usually you can find an ultrasonic cleaner and some cheap pen flush you can make on your own, which I have a video on how to do that. So I do recommend highly, can't stress that enough, an ultrasonic cleaner for you to be able to use at home. So if you're going to do work on pens, amateur work, not professional, this is, to me, is the bare minimum. You'll want some polishing cloths to go with, to go with this. And then, I'll be honest with you, I don't usually use this particular set of polish. It doesn't do bad, but I've got one that does better, I think, in my opinion, that I use instead of this. But I've got some other stuff that I use. So those are some of the bare minimum stuff that if you're going to do some work, then this is what you want to have. Okay, cool. So those are some of the tools that you're going to need. And I got to be honest with you, some of them, the list that I gave you, I would consider to be bare essentials. Let's see. When did your love of fountain pens start, and what was your first fountain pen? I'll let you answer that one first, because you kind of did earlier. When did your love of fountain pens start?
It wasn't really love at first, but then I started to get into them, and then that's when it was love. At first it was just, okay, this is a nice pen, but then I got into them and all that.
So I know that you started out with just an inexpensive Jinhao, and from there, I know you tried some of my pens. This kid was forever going here. I don't know if you can see it, but behind me, you'll see there's a stack of drawers here. And, even when I had less drawers here with pens in them, he would constantly be going into my drawers, pulling out pens, looking at them, playing with them, touching them, writing with them. And I kept saying, knock it off, put it back, put that cap back on when you're done. And so he just kind of fell into it probably a lot because I did. Now, for me, I mentioned earlier, a friend of mine had a fountain pen. He was using it at work. He let me try it, and I said, that's very different from what I'm used to, because fountain pens were not in use when I was in school. We started out with pencils and then up to ballpoints. I went to school in the 1970s and through the 80s, through elementary and high school. So what was my first fountain pen? I happen to have it right here. It was...
You still have it.
This one right there. This is a no name, there's no branding on it whatsoever. I found this at either an office supply store or at Walmart, something like that. And it was, I got to clean it. You can tell that it's been sitting here for just a little while, but I've got to clean this sucker up. This was actually in the, I've got a little dish here behind me, or a container back here behind me, where I've got a bunch of pens that need to be cleaned, probably 30, 40 pens that I need to clean. That's one of them, as is this one. This was the second pen. I told you a friend of mine had a pen that I really, really liked. It was a Waterman Filius, which is one of these. I bought this pen, let's see, probably the better part of a quarter century ago. And it was
quarter?
Like
25 years?
Not quite 25 years, probably 23 years, or maybe somewhere in there. About 23 years or so ago, I bought this particular pen. And it was my only pen for about 20 years. The better part of 20 years. And so I used it. Well, I'd use it, it would run out of ink, I'd set it aside, take it out again, ink it up again, and I just kept going back to it, This pen ate any ink that I put into it. It was a great writer, still is a great writer, and it's still kind of my sentimental pen. That and this one here are my two sentimental favorites because they were my first. You never forget your first.
You don't.
All right. Next question. I'd like to know what Matthew's favorite pen he now owns.
Can it be more than one?
I would say yes. So if you've got more than one favorite, I'm assuming you've got 4 pens that we pulled out here. I'm assuming these are your 4 favorites.
Yep.
All right, go for it. Take them.
Okay, this is... Wait,
That's a hemisphere.
This is a Waterman hemisphere. My dad got it for me for...
It was a Christmas gift. I think it was Christmas.
Yeah, it was either Christmas or birthday. It was a Christmas or birthday present.
I'm pretty sure it was Christmas.
And this one I got from Jim Hines, as he said earlier.
And he bought it with his own money, by the way.
I was broke after that.
He was broke after that. Yeah, but it was you bought it with your own money.
And I tried it. This is one of the only reasons I bought it, because of the design, and also just because I tried it, it wrote good, I liked it, and then I bought it. And this is a Jim Hines. It doesn't have a brand.
It does a beacon. That's the model.
Okay, it's a beacon Jim Hines pen.
Yep.
It's handmade. This one is Waterman CF. I got it at the Raleigh Pen Show.
You did?
They gave it to me for free just because.
They thought you were a cute little kid.
Yep.
That had an interest in pens. It was amazing. I mean, people kept... When we go to pen shows, people keep giving him stuff. I'm thinking about, becoming a child again just so I can get free pens.
Use a lot of makeup.
So he went up and he walked right up to a table and he said, "How much is this?" And they whispered back and forth and you can have it. So we got a Waterman CF. And
it says Fred W. Frederick.
Yep, so somebody named Fred Frederick owned that pen at one time.
I mean, it's Henry.
Henry? Whoa.
Yes, it's Henry.
Yep, Henry W. Frederick. So whoever Henry Frederick was used to own this pen at one time. So we had it personalized.
This one is a Monteverde Invencia. If you know who Mr. Larry is.
Larry the Pen Bug Guy.
He has a YouTube channel, and he gave me this one for Christmas.
Yep.
And it's a Monteverde Invencia. I like it.
Hey, speaking of which, Larry, if you're watching, I put in for vacation, so hopefully we'll be coming to see you guys in July.
It will be a good day.
Yeah, so those are your 4 favorites?
Yes. And now put them back.
Let's see. This one, I'm going to skip this one because I already answered that one online. How about this? Greasy Pete, you asked, I know that the Duofold is the best Parker, so what's the best Waterman?
Ooh.
Well, Pete, I'm going to answer it like this. Duofold is not necessarily the best Parker. There are people out there who prefer 51s.
Yep.
There are people out there who prefer Vacuumatics. Best is a very subjective thing, and it's all personal taste. I've got a Vacuumatic I absolutely love. I've got a Duofold here, and I like it. I don't love it. I like it. I like it a lot. I don't think it's the best. There are some Duofolds out there that I've seen that look a little different, and I like. I wouldn't mind trying some other Duofolds. So I don't know as though they're the best. The same can be said for Waterman. What Waterman is the best? It really depends on your personal taste. Vintage or modern. Vintage, I love the 12. The 12 is a very skinny, long, well, I can't say overly long, but it's a very thin pen. It's an eyedropper filled with a fantastic number 2 nib. I've got a Waterman 55, which actually is sitting right here on my desk, come to think of it, because it's been my pen of the day for the past couple of days. And
Because you love it.
I absolutely love this. And this has a manifold nib on it, a number 5 Waterman manifold nib. This was manufactured in the 1920s, the Red Ripple era, and it writes very, very well. And the manifold nib is not a flexible nib, but a firm nib. And I like both Waterman firm and flex nibs. So, if you like modern Watermans, if you look the not the expensive ones, the Phileas is a fantastic pen.
That's a what?
And I got to be honest though, I really, really love the Edson, the Boucheron Edson that I was just showing you here a minute ago that we just set down, and there it is. The Waterman Edson, to me, I fell in love with it the moment I saw it. And it wasn't the Boucheron that I fell in love with at first. It was, without the gold filigree overlay on it. It wasn't with the jewels in it. It wasn't with the, the actual gold. It was the Edson. Like, that's awesome. That's what I want. And then I saw the Boucheron edition. So if you like a good, smooth writing pen, there's that. The Waterman Karen is a great, great pen that's affordable. Although it's definitely not inexpensive. You're talking several $100s. So the best Waterman, I don't know there is a best. Some people prefer vintage, some modern, but everybody has their own personal taste. So to me, the Waterman Edson, and then you've got the 55, the 58, the 12 are some of my favorite vintage. So
Can I answer that one?
Go ahead.
Okay, mine is, it's one of yours.
Okay.
It's okay, what's that one that has the USA thing, the blue one?
I mean, I've got one that kind of looks like this. It has a flag on it.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
All right, so you're looking at the Waterman Culture, and that is an inexpensive Filius. Actually, it's a cheaper version of the Filius.
I like that one and the Edson and my the Hemisphere that you have.
The Hemisphere is a good pen. It really is, and it's a very affordable pen for most. Are there any ways to make sure that a vintage nib hasn't been tinkered with?
Tinker.
Well, there are some obvious signs. If it's been damaged, if it's bent. There are times where if you got the two tines, and let's say if you've got one like my fingers are, where somebody had just really gotten into it and had really hacked on it. If the slit is not dead center of the tines, which I actually ran across at one point, if there's no tipping material on the end of the pen, that could be one of two things: either just plain wear from years of use, or somebody having gone in, somebody had gone in and smoothed it out and wore it off. Another thing that I ran across was I bought a Waterman 54, which should have a number 4 nib in it, and it had a number 2 nib in it instead. So obviously somebody had replaced that nib with one that didn't belong. So those are a few ways to tell. I mean, if it looks obviously damaged, if the nib doesn't belong with the pen, you have to do some research sometimes to find that out. Are there any modern cartridges that fit the CF?
Oh yeah, the CF is
No.
the one I have.
Just to answer that question for you, no. But you can still find CF cartridges fairly inexpensively. And I just cleaned this one out. I got to clean out the pen cap, by the way. See that little crust on there? That was Diamine pumpkin orange, and I had cleaned this, but I didn't clean it all out of the cap, so you got some of that crud. So I gotta spend some time cleaning that out. Now, this is Matthew's Waterman CF. This is what the original CF cartridges look like. All right, this is a proprietary. It is. I cleaned it out. I got all the Diamine stuff out of it. I ultrasonically cleaned both that and the pen, and there are no modern cartridges to fit it. You have to order CF cartridges. You can still find them in abundance on eBay, and that's where I ordered them. And quite honestly, I don't keep ordering new ones because they're 50 years old, maybe 60 years old. The ink's pretty much already gone from them or evaporated out of the cartridge themselves. So I pierce them, flush them out with a blunt tip syringe, needle point syringe, flush it out, and I reuse those cartridges just like I did that one. So, all right, next. All right, we've already kind of covered this. Does Matthew use a fountain pen yet? And which one? Does he use a fountain pen? Let me go back up here and just show you or tell you. He has 82 documented fountain pens on my spreadsheet. And there are some pens I have yet to document. So he's probably got like 90 to 100 or so of his own that he personally owns, but I've only documented so far 82 of them.
I didn't buy them all.
So most of them were given to him, some were presents, and some were viewers like you have sent him a lot of pens.
Basically, like half of them were gifts.
Well, I had a lot of people who sent him pens. So, and by the way, thank you folks for being so generous with us both.
Thank you for giving me the pens.
Another question. It says, great having your kid involved. Does he like using fountain pens? We kind of answered that one, I think.
I like them. There's some certain pens that I like more than others.
Right. When did you start collecting fountain pens? Be honest with you, only about 3 years ago did I start collecting them. I started using them over 20 years ago, and I showed you the one that I was using incessantly. Well, I can't say incessantly because I'd use it and it would run out of ink, and I'm not going to fill it up. And then at one point I ran out of ink, and both cartridges and bottled ink, and I eventually ordered another. And then what I did was one day I said, well, I kind of like this pen. Now I wonder if there are any others. So I started looking around, and I found some cheap Chinese pens. I ordered them, and they wrote okay. I think the Jinhao 450 was the first pen that I ordered for a couple of bucks. It showed up. I used it. Then I had problems with it, and I set it aside. And I said, there's got to be some other stuff. So I asked some friends of mine on Facebook, hey, anybody out there a fountain pen user, what do you recommend? And they came back with Pilot Metropolitan, Lamy 2000. Got them both, used them both. Okay, fine. What else is out there? And then I started checking out different videos online. I found some YouTubers with names that you would recognize, and I checked some of them out and got to know some of them. Found some people were local, some people long distance. So I would like to ask Matthew, if you're practicing your handwriting, and I mean really practicing, for say 10 minutes per session.
No.
Sorry to say.
Only time I practice is at school sometimes.
Speak up. So,
only time I practice is at school sometimes, like during recess I might draw or something.
yeah, drawing is not penmanship and not handwriting, and I got a feeling this summer we're going to be doing a lot more of that.
No.
Yeah. I'd love to see some more videos on fountain pen maintenance and repair. All right, I am not an expert. Very much I'd say almost novice. I know enough how to tear some of them apart. I still break pens once in a while. Be prepared for that, by the way. Don't be afraid to break a pen. I'm not saying try to. I'm saying try not to. But I've broken a few pens, and from my understanding, that's actually not abnormal, because even guys who are expert repair folks have been known to break them. When you sit down and you talk to them, and they talk about how they learn stuff, they learn from playing with them and breaking them.
Learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, so they learn not to do what not to do, and I've learned that a few times as well. But fountain pen maintenance and repair. Okay, maintenance I can do. I got to be honest with you. I'm not so much into having torn apart piston fillers, grease them, put them back together. Never really done a whole lot of that because I haven't really had to. But as far as lever fillers now, I got you there. That I can do. I don't replace a lot of pressure bars, J bars, or stuff like that. I have, or at least reattach some as well. Not my forte, but I definitely can tear apart a pen, replace an ink sac, talc it up, put it back together, and get it writing back to its maiden form. That I can do. So I may do that eventually. And actually I tried recording a video one time. The battery on this camcorder died, and I've got some crappy batteries for this camcorder. It really irritates me.
So that's why you want to buy like a different one?
I would like to buy another one, yeah. But all right, here's some. Here's a neat question. Probably one of the most inventive questions. I'm going to get to that one here. And we had actually just before recording this, we had someone else who commented, Matthew, what type of pens do you like? I think we pretty much already covered that, but what kind of pens? I mean, American pens, Chinese pens, European pens, any particular brands that are your favorite? I know you got the 4 favorites here. You've kind of answered that question in that terms, but do you like slender pens? Do you like fatter pens? Do you like longer ones, shorter ones? Do you like vintage ones, modern ones? Go.
Basically, it doesn't matter. Like some of them they're less expensive, like Gin House. I like them. They're some of the less expensive pens, but then like those four that we covered, they're more of the upper expensive pens, and I like them too, so it just depends on how it writes.
Okay.
And like that.
An inexpensive pen with a great nib, I'll take that over an expensive pen with a crappy nib any day.
Yep.
So, all right, here's the last question that we're going to do for this this particular video. And I'm going to read it verbatim for the question, and I am going to read my answer. If you could take bits and pieces from any manufacturers to assemble your own dream pen, what would you do? An M1000 medium nib in the body, the shape of a KOP, which is the King of Pens, Pro Gear, made of Omos Arco Bronze celluloid with a Conid bulk filler filling system, for example. Very inventive question. I like the question. I like the way you think. So I'm going to read verbatim my answer to that I answered on YouTube. I would love the inlaid nib of the Waterman Carène or Edson, probably the Edson, with a large cigar shape like an old Conway Stewart, in a semi-transparent jeweled tone celluloid or acrylic with a piston filler. I would want the nib or the section to be removable like the Edson is now for easy cleaning. If that's not engineeringly feasible, then with a gold Pelican large nib that's easily screwed out of the section housing for cleaning and replacement. I love piston fillers, but many are not easily cleaned unless you can easily remove the nib, like a Pelican or an old Esterbrook lever filler. And I'm going to throw in there as well the Visconti Homo sapiens. I would like the piston filler for the easy or operation. I would like the piston filler for the easy or operation and filling ink capacity and not needing a cartridge or converter or ink sac replacement.
That was long.
So that was my answer to that. All right, so that's our first Q&A video together. Hey, if you got questions, more questions that you want to have us answer on our channel, feel free to hit us up. You can always email us as well if you need to contact us, troylaplant.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page. You can find all our social media contacts there. You can always leave questions here. We'll do our best. Anything else you want to add? No? He's been pestering me all day to do this video.
And yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday he kept pestering me too. So, all right. So we got one of our winners. We got more giveaways coming up. We've got pens, inks. I got like a half a dozen pens I purchased just for giveaway. I got bottles of ink I'm gonna give away. We got more T-shirts to give away. So just keep watching. Now, anything else you want to add? No. No. All right. Well, hey, thanks for watching. I'm Troy.
I'm Matthew.
And fountainpenfanatic.com.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching our channel.